Welcome to a football show Monday edition. I am Braden Gall, and back by popular demand,
That's
Easton
right.
Freeze filling in for Zach Lyons. Of course, Zach had some issues with families taken care of, so we wish him the best of luck traveling and getting back home safe and sound. But of course, Easton, always a pleasure to have you. And many people were talking about the episode last week. Many people were clamoring for more Easton Freeze. So here you are, and I do appreciate you hanging out. How are you, sir?
I'm great. It's a pleasure to be on, and I'm glad that somebody was clamoring. Zach himself, that ungrateful SOB, comes on the show. I fill in for him on Monday, and the first thing he does on Thursday is not only tear into my Monday thoughts, but completely and utterly misrepresent what we discussed. And I appreciate you doing a little bit of damage control there, but yeah, no, it's that's on brand for him. I appreciate the banter, and I appreciate the disagreement, but he's wrong. It's fine. He's wrong.
Yeah.
He's allowed to be wrong.
So this brings up so many great things right away. Of course, Sinkers Beverages and Kingston Group are two great and amazing primary sponsors, of course, on the show. Make sure you check out Sinkers. We've got some stuff to promote here on the front end of the product. So Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, we love you guys. Obviously, two award-winning companies locally owned here in Nashville. So if you're in the area in East Nashville, you can also Uber Eats and search Uber Eats for Sinkers Beverages. They'll have the booze delivered directly to your house. So if you live within the area, not just in East, but anywhere in Nashville, they'll deliver the booze to your house. They've got a great selection. Join the in crowd. I got a fancy Heaven Hill Barrel and Bond, fancy bottle of whiskey that not everybody can get because I'm a part of the in crowd. That's why you do it. Kingston Group, of course, buildkg.com. You guys know the drill with them. A locally owned, award-winning custom home and remodeling firm. Just keep that name right there in the noggin. And remember it. Tim Dodge, of course, went with us on our trip that Sinkers provided up to Kentucky to go pick the Russell's 10-year barrel pick for the year. That's coming in a couple of months. We're going to have a few bottles on the show to give away. Tim already off the top rope. Zach got a nice makeover in the comment section. So essentially, Tim finds you to be more attractive than Zach Lyons is what I'm taking it from Tim. War Damn Eagle, baby.
Smart man.
Tim, we're going to have a lot of good SEC stuff for you on the show because, Easton, it's not your thing. SEC football is not like your favorite thing in the world. And so we are in the middle. There's two main topics today on the show, which have to do with the fact that there is nothing happening.
Yes, yeah.
So as creative as we can get about all of this, number one, we're going to get you prepped like a whole SEC for Dummies primer on what you need to know. SEC Media Days are coming to town in less than 3 weeks. I cannot wait. But talking season is upon us. Of course, the right. Titans don't report for quite some time. So we're gonna have some interesting topics today about rankings, about summer content around the Tennessee Titans, and how maybe you just got to take a deep breath around some of this stuff. I saw one ranking. I texted it to you like 10 minutes before the show started. I was like, I can't believe this is already happening. It's already here. So
yeah, I mean, I think we're right at exactly 4 weeks until the Titans report, or give or take a day. So we've got a month to make some stuff up, and I guess really 3 weeks, because then you get SEC Media Days, and there'll be plenty to talk about surrounding that. Which you reminded me. I knew that they were coming to Nashville, but my brain hadn't been like, oh, that's this summer. I was like, oh yeah, that's coming soon, very soon. So that's exciting, and I'm sure you'll be there, right?
Oh yeah. Fortunately or unfortunately, every second of the day. It's just I've got to I need babysitters for the kids. The wife's gonna have to do extra work. Like we're gonna need help from family because it is a 7 a.m. to like 11 p.m. type of work week for those of us in the SEC world. So we're going to kind of give a lay of the land, 10,000-foot view, and then kind of drill down on the SEC. So you Titans fans and you Middle Tennessee fans who want to kind of get a primer for everything that's going on, the state of the SEC, we're going to do that. But also, again, rankings across the internet about the Titans and which ones should you pay attention to. Before we do that real quickly, Easton, tell everybody where they can hear you. Tell them what you got on the Hot Read podcast.
Yeah, I'm the host of the Hot Read podcast. Every Monday and Friday mornings, we're talking primarily Titans ball, but we're also big into the draft. We are big into gambling. And so we're doing the same thing that you guys are doing here on the football show right now, being creative, some fun topics, off-season topics to dive into, some thought experiments here and there, and then going over just the news of the summer, the sports of the summer. My producer JT is a big Mets fan like you are, so I'm constantly giving him hell for how aggressively bad the Mets are. this year as compared to what the expectations were. But I'm guessing you're going to say that's the life of a Mets fan.
There's nothing you can say that the Mets haven't already said to me. Like there's nothing that can
hurt you worse than they have hurt you. Yeah, fair enough.
Like this is part of my life. So a couple of other quick notes to promote here. Number one, brand new show from 440 Media, of course, called Pod Bless Nashville. It is all about the inner workings of the city. It is not a sports show. One of our first episodes was about the fairgrounds, so that does tie into sports. But if you know sort of the history of the fairgrounds, how it was saved, what happened in the council meeting that night when so many Nashvillians came and saved that property, but now where it's going, what it is now. So all kinds of great fairground stuff. We did a kangaroo court episode about the environmental court. So I get to stretch sort of like my nerdy metro political news and history legs a little bit on that show.
Yeah.
Jamie Holland. So go check that out. Pod Bless Nashville. If you like,
10 out of 10 name, by the way, no notes. Very well done on the name. How long did we have to sit and mull over that? It's just, I'm sure when it came across the old ticker, you were like, that's the one.
I might have come up with the name before the show, honestly.
Like, oh, really? Okay.
No, it just fit. And I've always wanted to do something outside of sports, and I get to do that with this show. And again, it may not be for you, you may not care about it, but we're trying to go down the middle with as much stuff as possible. It is not political partisanship type of show. There's not left or right. It is just sort of like, here's the news, here's how it works, here's what you need to know.
It's information.
Go decide for yourself what you think. We got a mayoral race primer where we talk about all 8 candidates' strengths and weaknesses coming out this week, so go check that out. Last week on Lamestream Sports, I had a music guest called Them Vibes. They are just a fascinating Nashville band. They've been here for over 10 years. Really fun listen. They have an album release party coming up on July 1st, this Saturday, at Basement East. Really great record. You can only buy it in person. It's not available digitally until September. So if you want to get the record now, it's Sonic Chameleonic is the name of the record. So shout out to Them Vibes. Really fun rock, funk, kind of just soul, great rock and roll band. So just go check them out and come out. We're going to be out there Saturday night at Basement East on July 1st. So go check them out as well. We do appreciate the support. He was a huge Jets fan, and I'm going to play this on the audio version of the pod when we put this out, Easton. He's a huge Jets fan, and he told a spectacular story. Oh. He's also a Mets fan. Told a spectacular story about coming to Nissan Stadium in like 2011, 2012, as when he first moved here as a Jets fan, as a New Yorker, and the difference in the crowd between the Meadowlands and Nissan Stadium. So if you're listening on the podcast, you're going to get this right now. I'm not going to play it for you here on the video version. You got to go check out the podcast. So
I'd imagine they're slightly different demographics, slightly different situation. Yeah,
slightly different. It was a lot of fun though. They're great conversation on Lamestream Sports, and a great concert coming up on Saturday. So check it out. That's a lot of promotion. I think I got it all out. SEC for Dummies. Here you go. Athlon Sports. There you go. Athlon Sports Magazine's on newsstands now. I also work for them. Basically, I work for everybody. So go check out the magazine. Okay, so I want to these rankings. So the one that got me going on this topic was Bill Barnwell, who technically is a coworker, a peer, someone I've known for a long time. I work at ESPN as well, and he put out these rankings of essentially skill position players minus the quarterback. And he had the Titans as the 29th best collection of skill players in the NFL, which, if we want to have an intellectual debate about that, Easton, we could say, oh, I think they belong here, here, here.
Sure.
And that's fine. We could do that. I think I have a different
the most monotonous hour of radio that nobody needs. Sure. We could do it if you wanted to.
So they're not great, which is all I really need to say, I feel like, about the skill position players, right? And then you're like, okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, the take is, if you're basing it on what we've seen from the group of skill position players, then yeah, 29th is right, because this group is largely 80% projection, right? So if we're just going based on what we've seen so far and assume nobody gets better, sure. And I guess that's probably where he's coming from. But yeah, it's how about we see it and then we can talk about it, right? Because there's plenty to think this is going to be better than that. There's a lot of players on this team where you're like, they could certainly be something that people have not seen from them yet, we're maybe even expecting them to be. But until they are, you're just arguing over projections, and that's peak June content that I'm not interested in.
So I don't know which one of and it is definitely what happened. And this is the PSA on the show today, which is okay, this time of year, you are going to get this type of content. Some people do it very, very thoughtfully and very well.
Sure.
And some people do it for no reason at all to get you to click and to
phone
piss
that
you
in,
off.
baby. Just phone it in. Easy, lazy content.
They want you pissed off, and they want you enraged, and they want you clicking and clicking and clicking and then sharing, and then, oh my God, look what this asshole said, and look what this piece of trash said. And like,
enragement is engagement.
The ranking of, like, the one that drives me nuts, and I'd like to know which one is because I've got two that are my least favorite of like all time.
Okay.
And it happens every time around this year. One of them is intentional by the NFL itself. And I get why they do it, but who cares? Is the top 100 players thing. Like, to try to put 100 NFL players into some subjective list. Like, can we argue about, like, who do I think are the great quarterbacks that can carry a team to a Super Bowl? I think
I love that you brought this up. I love that you brought this up because I really like the 100 players list.
Are you
I'm in the
kidding
minority.
me?
No, and
Are you kidding me?
Let me explain. It all depends. It all depends on what you think the point of it is. And if you've never consumed the actual television product that the entire list is based around, then I can understand thinking it's stupid and monotonous and has no point. To me, it's not a list where I'm looking at it like there is any kind of, my ultimate answer is it's not that deep, bro. Like, that's what it is. Like, I don't think that this list is put together by players in the league, their subjective, personal, lived experience rankings of players. And I view it as the NFL's way in the summer to just celebrate some of the best players in the league. Like, do I care who's above? Like, oh, Jamar Chase is ranked one spot below Stephon Diggs. That's ridiculous. No, I really don't. But we get to sit there and watch like a special 5 to 10 minute clip on players that we love to watch. And you get to watch some of their best highlights and hear from their peers about how awesome they are and the great things that they do. I find that part really cool and fun.
So if you watch it like an NFL film style, like documentary about the season,
go towards it.
Okay, I could get behind that level. And I do think the part of it, this is where I think almost all these lists, some of them have some value and some of them have no value. But like the one that always comes out, and I can't remember who does it, and I this is totally my fault for not remembering, where they have like the other GMs rank the quarterbacks, and because the quarterback ranking one is going to be, I'm going to get to that one in a second.
Oh shoot, yes.
But the top 100 players, like the part that's interesting to me is what another player says something specific about a different player. Like if you gave me something very interesting about, like, man, I'm a guard and I've played against Jeffrey Simmons and I have some really insightful opinion as to why he is the toughest nose tackle or defensive tackle to block. And you can say, like, look, the power and strength and burst off the line. He can read the game faster than anybody else. He knows run versus pass faster than anybody else. And no matter what our scheme is, I just know that I'm going to need help on that run play outside or this kind of pass protection here. Like, that to me is really interesting. And
yes,
I understand that they're packaging it in like a clicky way where they want you to click and click and click. Now, you're right. The TV product is a little bit more, Steve Sable, NFL Films, and I can get on. I'm okay with
the actual list is dumb. Like, I'm with you. If anybody's like taking it as an argument, because that's the thing. When a list, whether it's an article or a podcast or whatever it is, if a list like that comes out and the crux of the actual substance of that content is somebody being like, here is my list, here's the order, and let me instead, I'm not going to talk about the players themselves, but I'm going to like argue why they're here and above this guy, but below this guy, then that's dumb. Like that, but that's not what they do, I don't think. They're not really like going to, you know what I mean?
That's fair. Stoney, shut the hell up. So the comment is, what's worse, the NFL top 100 players list or arguing about the NFL top 100 players
list?
Yes. So we did not mean to fall into an argument about that. The main point of this,
and I already know that's going to be Zach's number one comment on Thursday, by the way, is like, just flaming me for liking that list, because that is the exact kind of thing that a curmudgeon like him can't stand.
Well, and I don't like it at all either, but you've made a valid point. I'm willing to concede that it's the television product is more there for like NFL films to rewatch, like Hank Stram in Super Bowl III with the Chiefs.
And for the third time, for the record, the list is dumb, but I don't think it's about the list. For me, it's not, at least.
35 toss power trap. It might bust wide open there. 35 toss power trap.
Yeah, you never know.
You never know. But I think like you're going to see tweets though all summer. They're like, oh, only 3 Titans. on the top 100 list, and then somebody's
That's
then you're
the
gonna
part that I hate is the bloggers aggregating it and treating it like it's serious. Like that's where it's like, bro, I promise it's not that deep.
Yeah.
Just relax.
The one that drives me nuts is like, because what happens is it devalues some of the actual commentary in my mind. The ranking the quarterbacks thing with Ryan Tannehill specifically. I get sucked into it. I'm guilty of this as well. We're talking, like, to Stoney's point, we're almost doing the problem here by we're almost making it worse by sitting here and talking about it on a show, by the way, with the number 1 ranked liquor store in Nashville. Factually, of course, number 1 liquor store ranked.
That's
Sinker's Beverages.
Yeah.
Defending champ. Kingston Group, award winning. Okay. You know what I mean? Like, ranked very highly. The ranking of the quarterbacks thing, what I think happens is
it's Mike Sando, by the way. I just found it. It's Mike Sando at The Athletic that does the GM QB rankings.
What it is there's so much great stuff in there. And like Bill Barnwell talking about the Titans receiving core and running backs, like there's interesting nuggets in there, interesting things to discuss and talk about. Mm-hmm. But the only thing that ends up making it out of the article to people is the number next to the name. And that's almost the thing that doesn't matter to me. Like, we know who the best quarterbacks are.
Matter. Yeah.
We know who the middle of the road quarterbacks are. We know who the worst. And I remember one summer, Ryan Tannehill's not top 10 quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's not top 10 quarterback. Oh my God, he's not top. Who gives a shit if he's ranked 8th on The Athletic or ranked 14th by me, or I think he's 18th and you think he's 12th. What's interesting is like the commentary by the other GMs about Ryan Tannehill, or in this case, any quarterback. The commentary inside of there, you can learn stuff as long as you don't take the bait on the clicky stuff and you drill down, because every day there's going to be a new company with a new blog post and a new ranking about something new in the NFL that's going to piss you off as a Titans fan. And there doesn't mean there's not something in there that's interesting, but make sure you take the time to dig into it and find the interesting thing about like why this particular blitz package works against Ryan Tannehill. Right? Like, not like that's the interesting thing, not, I think he's better than Matt Stafford, or I think he's worse than Andy Dalton, or like, don't get caught up in that stuff.
Braden, I agree with you wholeheartedly, but I'm sure you're as aware of this as I am, that we are sitting here rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, because this is a futile effort on our part this is what everything that is wrong with society in terms of like our attention span. And yeah, exactly. Like, there's a reason why
the band's still playing.
Clickbait BS articles get the most clicks, because they bother you on like a primal,
visceral
level, right? Yeah. That doesn't involve any actual thinking. There's like, it is the empty calories versus no empty calories approach that we have here at 440 Sports. And luckily, there are plenty of people, dedicated people, that are willing and able to support us in the no empty calories crusades. But for the time being, the empty calories still prevail, and they will prevail. And it's just, we're just going to piss into the wind about it. And it is annoying, but
I would compare it to bringing it back to Bill Barnwell's article that came out like today, I think, about the Titans being ranked 29th. Like, I don't care what number it is, but I think the most interesting, you've already kind of laid out the more interesting angle on the conversation, which is, and this is, and I hope Zach reacts very passionately to this take, because I don't think they're nearly as good as Zach thinks they're going to be. But I also do really like some of the pieces in the receiving core. I like Hassan Haskins more than Zach does.
See, I'm big on this team. I don't like Hassan Haskins at all. I'm out. I'm out on Hassan Haskins.
Okay, next 45 minutes, we're going to argue about Hassan Haskins. All right, go.
No, please. No, I'll leave the show.
I think there is depth at the running back position. They are as good at running back as you can, I think, any team, really, frankly, from a versatility standpoint. I think they're really interesting at tight end. I think there's some glaring holes at receiver, but I think they're going to be better this year than they were potentially last year.
Yep.
And so I think there's a lot of intrigue to discuss about this team. But to say that I just know that this is going to happen, or I know that that's going to happen, that's where, you lose the discussion with people. And
because it's dumb. Like the idea that we know anything in June. What is, I'm gonna totally botch the Greek philosopher who was like, all that I know is that I don't know anything. Like, that's the gist of the famous saying. Like, it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, where it's like, where are you on the slope of knowing everything? And that's where this starts to bother people, I think.
Okay, throw Jason's comment up there, because I think this is a really interesting point. And he says, people complaining about frivolous sports debates is a pet peeve. I'm assuming he's
Talking
annoyed
about us.
by us right now, right?
Yeah, what we're doing.
Sports is entertainment, and it is marginally different than preseason team rankings. So, Jason, I want to ask you this question, and Easton, you this question as well, and the listening audience this question: am I just too jaded because I've been doing this for 20 years that like the LeBron Jordan thing or the Brady Manning thing, or like it's not interesting to me anymore. And does that mean I'm the problem, that I am dead inside, that I have lost all that inner child that used to like love arguing about Brett Favre versus, Troy Aikman versus, John Elway?
Right.
Like, does that make me the problem, or does that mean the rest of media has been taken over by that? And therefore we're not able to, because like, I think, if you listen to the Hot Read or Go Broadway Sports or listen to 440 sports shows, I think and there's plenty of good radio hosts that do this well, and Twitter accounts and Substacks and everything else that like
simple.
Somebody says yes. Somebody says,
you are the problem, Braden.
Yes, I am the problem. And listen, I will fully be accounted for if you guys all are still in that desirable place. Then I will come on here and say that Ryan Tannehill is like the 13th best quarterback or the 18th best quarterback, and we can have a discussion about that. I just don't know where that gets us. I don't know where do we end? Like,
so the answer to your question, is it you or is it sports media? I think, as is the case with most things in life, it's a little bit of both. I do think that as somebody that is I'm on the front end of my sports media career. You are firmly in the middle of your sports.
Jason's comment off the screen, by the way.
Okay, get lost, Jason.
Thank you, Jason.
I do think that there is an element of that where and I can see both ways, because there are some things that you just mentioned in terms of debates where it's like, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, I still am intrigued by that conversation. But there are also a number of debates that 5 years ago I found fascinating. I hear people talk about today, and I just have no interest in. So I understand both sides of that argument. And I do think the dumbing down of our culture and society and that bleeding over into sports media is also a big problem here. For me, it is less about, like Jason said, people complaining about frivolous sports debates is a pet peeve. If he had just said people complaining about sports debates is a pet peeve, then I would have agreed with him. For me, I don't care if you're going to have these debates, whether I care about the topic or not. I care about whether you're doing it in a meaningful, intelligent way. And the problem is the vast majority of these debates aren't conducted in a meaningful or intelligent way. If we're going to have that debate again, I need you to bring something new. I need new perspective. I need new thoughts. I need it to not be baby pool shallow in terms of the depth at which you have done your research and the point that you're making. Like that's what bothers me, is the super baby pool shallow level team blogger.
It's lazy.
500 words to make a paycheck. That's what bothers me.
It's lazy. And Strike 113 says, first of all, he says, yes, it's me. It's my problem. And then he says, to be fair, in this time of the summer, where does anything get us? Games at this point are really all that matter now. And that's 1,000,000% correct.
Yep.
Now, but back to Jason's point, though, about this. And Tim, I think Tim makes a great point. It's fun in person to have sports debates. Reading it online is just boring. I will agree that if you are sitting at home and getting enraged by somebody's blog post that you've never met or you never talked to,
you can't respond to,
and you're not, this is not like an NFL GM, who's like doing this off the record, where like Mike Sando's list of quarterbacks actually has a lot of meat on the bone there.
Yes.
Then I think you have taken the bait. You are literally rotting your own brain. Yes, I sound like an old man screaming.
Congrats,
right
sucker!
Now.
You played yourself.
But like, our brains are being like just devolved by garbage content and distraction all the time.
Yes.
But I think, to Tim's point, he was with us on the bus ride up to do our barrel pick, Sinkers Beverages, of course. Dang. And I don't remember having my phone out much at all. Zach took his phone out to take a few pictures of Tim, ironically. But like, we got into a music debate where it was like pretty basic, pretty age-old Beatles, Stones, Zeppelin, Allman Brothers, like 70s rock. Who changed more? Who did that? Like the same exact discussion that like 6 middle-aged white guys have always had for like 55 years. But because it was all of us in person, hearing each other talk and giving each other a chance to make a point and discussing it, it was far more interesting. Yes. And it was far more fun. Oh, yeah. I think if you want to get enraged at your best friend for telling you that Jason Isbell sucks, I think you should punch him in the face. That's fine. But if somebody writes a blog about like how, your favorite artist or your favorite quarterback isn't very good, and there's no like interest there. There's no meat. There's no hook. I think you've taken the bait and you've lost the war. I think at that point.
Yeah, I'm with you. And maybe you don't punch best friends in the face over sports debates. I wouldn't recommend that. But other than that, yeah, I'm with you. And I think Stoney sums it up well here. He says, stuff isn't interesting to me if I can sniff out that it's phony and designed for engagement from a mile away. We can talk about the dumbest shit possible. And as long as I know it's genuine, I'm good with it. That's what it is for me. It's like I need it to be a good faith, intelligent, genuine conversation. And then I got no problem. You can argue the dumbest, most mundane. I mean,
is a hot dog a sandwich?
Yes. Yeah.
But you can make incredibly intelligent points about that.
Yeah, you can go deep on that. I mean, LeBron Jordan is the one that is the number one.
I'm so tired of it.
It's the most mind-numbing conversation, and yet I have no problem with you having that debate if you're going to actually do the work and come at it from a genuine, good faith perspective. The problem is it just very rarely is, and if it's on the internet, I can almost guarantee you it's not.
So we're going to get to SEC football. Special thanks to Sinkers Beverages and Kingston Group. No, Tim says no. It's a taco. I think it's like the Cheeto of sandwiches, because a Cheeto is not a chip. It's not a chip.
No,
but like it's made exactly the same way. It's like a corn processed thing with like flavoring on it, but it's not really
the closest
a chip
thing to it.
So it's its own category. A Cheeto it's not a pretzel. It's a snack. It's its own category. A hot dog is its own category. I was gonna, so like, to me, here's an example of what I think should be a very smart and intellectual football debate that we are just almost not allowed to have anymore.
Okay.
Tom Brady being the greatest of all time. If you say he's not, it will come across. If I say right now, I don't think Tom Brady's clearly the GOAT, it will come off as inflammatory, as phony, as I'm trying to create something that is going to drive traffic and enrage people, right? Right? Isn't that like, most people would hear me say that, and that would be their response. If I then spent some time saying, well, I just don't think we can decide between generations. You can be the greatest of your generation. I think we can also, who you got drafted by and where you got drafted really matters to me. I think if Peyton Manning had gotten drafted by Bill Belichick, he would have won 5 or 6 Super Bowls. Like, I don't think there's that big of a difference between the two of them. And I don't think it's possible to compare Derrick Henry to Barry Sanders, to Earl Campbell, to Jim Brown. I don't think you can compare giant gaps in like eras of sports and expect, like, how do we know if Wilt Chamberlain is as good as Michael Jordan or LeBron James? Like, we have no clue. And so I think like that would be my intellectually honest approach to the Tom Brady debate. Would be like, well, I think he's great. He's one of the greatest of all time. He's on the top tier. But to tell me that you think he is definitively better than, Johnny Unitas or whoever you think was great in 1967, I don't know if we can. I don't know if anyone can answer that question logically. But if I suggest it, I'm phony and I'm creating a hot take. Does that make sense?
It's because the headline of the debate is an automatic turnoff for practically everybody. And if you ask yourself, why is that? Why is the headline of this debate, are we sure Brady is the GOAT? An automatic eye roll, because that's what it is. I mean, you see that anywhere online, and you're like, "There's a 0% chance I'm clicking this. This is this is a literal cry for help. It is your little sibling just screaming and begging for attention. It's your mom on the phone and your little brother like punching her in the leg, and it's just, stop, please. I'm ignoring you. The reason why is because 99.99% of people that are trying to make that point aren't actually making that genuine, intellectually honest debate or point that you're making. They are doing it as a cry for attention. And so it's one of those things that we consider to be, I think, culturally, society at large considers Tom Brady is the GOAT to be a fact at this point. I think most people would say, yes, of course he is. It's not a debate anymore.
But how can anyone use the word fact? Like, that's my problem with it. It's like,
right. And
how do you know he's better than John Elway?
That takes too much thinking, Braden. It takes too much thinking and time. It's far too much effort is the problem.
And honestly, what it is a lot of Titans fans, because I feel like, again, I moved here before the Titans. So I have kind of grown up as a professional and a college kid and a high school kid with the Titans. They are not my favorite team. I'm a Packers fan. Everybody knows that. But I root for the Titans and the Packers to play in the Super Bowl every year and for the Packers to win in overtime. Like, that's what I want to root for. Sure. Like, personally as a fan. So I'm not completely dead inside. But like, I also want the Titans fandom and our city and like my community, my in-laws who are all in the same Titans fan group together, like people that I love and care about deeply, I want them to sort of continue to grow and evolve and like not take the stupid shit that they read so seriously and like let it make them angry, because I'm like, no, you guys are better than that. You're growing out of your like infancy as a fandom. We're growing into like our third or fourth decade here soon in terms of being a fandom. And we're pretty entrenched here. We're going to have $2 billion stadium. We're going to have Super Bowls. Like, we're a professional sports town. We can kind of start to act like a little bit. And that's not trying to be like condescending or trying to knock Titans fans. But I think we're going to like the Ryan Tannehill debate comes up every time around this time of year, and everybody ends up in the same exact place arguing about whether or not he can win a Super Bowl or not. And we just don't have the answer. No, but the other one's going to be about Derrick Henry. It's going to be about Derrick Henry. And Derrick Henry is like, and you could argue Pecorine for the Predators fans. Among his generation, Derrick Henry is one of the greatest running backs on planet Earth.
Yep.
I have no clue if he would be better in 1972 running against, Pittsburgh steel curtain linebackers, or if he'd be worse. I don't know. I think he would be better because everyone would be smaller, but the rules were fucking crazy back then.
So, would Derrick Henry be the size that he is with you take away 20 years of sports science and medicine and like
I don't that's genetic. I feel like that's
a lot of it is genetics. I'm with you, but like that's the thing for me when you talk about comparing eras. It's like they literally are incomparable because the day-to-day life and the upbringing within the sport of a Derrick Henry, or it's even more I think defined with quarterbacks. Like today's pro quarterback, like Will Levis grew up, I'm sure, doing all of these, Elite Eight camps, and like he's got a personal quarterback coach by middle school, and he's being for years and years groomed specifically for this job, whereas Terry Bradshaw was like out fishing on the day that he got drafted. Like it's not the same thing. These dudes weren't the same. And if you took a Terry Bradshaw and put him through that 20-year life cycle of a modern NFL quarterback, what would he be? We don't know.
I think quarterback, and maybe this is the hot take, I think quarterbacks today would quit the game in 1972. I think they would fucking quit.
Because they get murdered all the time?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was such like the physicality, Joe Theismann.
One hard tackle on that concrete astroturf and you're done.
And it's not to say that they're not tough. That's not what I'm saying. It's different. It's different. So Derrick Henry, in my opinion, is one of the greatest running backs of all time. But what does that really mean? Does that mean he's like top 3? Does that mean he's top 8? Does that mean he's top 10? Does that mean he's a Hall of Famer? I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Right.
And I don't say that lightly. I think a Hall of Famer means that you are the best. You are one of the best players at your position during your time.
Yeah.
Like if you're one of the best third basemen in Major League Baseball during your career, you're probably a Hall of Famer.
Right. If you're a top 3 guy at your position for 3 or 4 years in a row, you're in that conversation. That's just the way that it works. And I think the answer is he this? Is he this? Where exactly? Let's pick the nits. The answer is stop. Just appreciate for me at least. It's like it's a boring, not very fun answer, but just appreciate the greatness. Be satisfied with he is clearly, this is a fact, one of the best running backs that we have ever seen from a statistical standpoint, from an eye test standpoint. Where exactly he fits in the pantheon, if you want to debate it, knock yourself out, just do it intelligently. But for me, who cares?
I could see him being like on a list as like the 19th best running back in NFL history and people just being insanely upset about it. And it's like, no, I mean, there's probably been like 30 elite running backs in NFL history. Like that's where we're at. Like, LaDainian Tomlinson, Barry Sanders, Jim Brown. I mean, we get Marshall Faulk,
the list gets long in a
Adrian
hurry.
Peterson. Like we can keep going. Yeah. Like it's not, who knows? So anyway, and that doesn't even include anybody from like Jim Brown, Tony Dorsett, Franco Harris era at all. No. Curtis Martin is one of the greatest running backs of all time, and nobody talks about him. So that is what it is. Anyway, okay. I didn't mean for that to turn into such.
I know we're already halfway through here. We've not even gotten to SEC for Dummies. Do we want to get into SEC for Dummies?
All right. Sinkers Beverages, of course. Beverages for Dummies. They'll just walk in and say, "I need some help," and they will help you. Sinkers Beverages is the way to go. Sign up for the in crowd. Uber Eats. Search Sinkers Beverages. They'll deliver the booze right to your house. Kingston Group. They will take care of any problem you have at your house. Just before you make any major financial decisions, a renovation, a custom build, buying or selling, whatever it may be, just to have a conversation with them first. They will help guide you through that process, even if you don't use them. But if you do use them, I guarantee you will be happy and satisfied because they do the best work of anybody in the city. So, okay, all right, SEC for Dummies. Now, Easton, I wanted to give you a chance to sort of like, this is not you're an NFL guy, you're a Titans guy, and talk about a sport that lives on internet debates and rankings.
No
College football
Yeah.
is at the top of the list, but we're not going to do any of that.
No.
So we've got a list of sort of 10,000-foot major questions for you to be prepared. It's a primer.
I'm putting my dummy hat on because I'm no longer expert. I am fan dummy man here to ask the expert questions.
And you get to ask the questions.
That's right.
So the football show floor is now yours, sir.
Okay. So, Braden, as you've established, I do watch a good bit of college football. I don't have a team. I just like to watch the good games. And I follow it, and I enjoy it. I bet it. I like to talk about it. But I certainly do not approach it from I have any expertise on this standpoint like I would with the NFL. That being said, this time of year, I think for a casual yet devoted fan of the sport like I am, kind of that median build a fan kind of guy, this time of year is the time of year that I am most tuned out as to not tuned out, but least in tune with what's going on. You know what I mean? Like I'm not. It's June, just like with the NFL. Obviously, these.
I'm worried about what beer I'm drinking at the pool with the kids on Saturday, not college football.
Man.
I got
exactly.
you.
So as we get, we're creeping up on it here. Once we get to July, it's like this: the clock starts ticking, and it'll be here before we know it. I've got a number of questions about the SEC this year, which I do find the SEC as a conference a good bit more interesting this season than in recent seasons, for me at least, simply because of how much turnover there is at important positions. And I think there's also a number of coaching discussions, coaching debates, maybe some hot seats out there that I've heard whispers of. I've heard you talk about on this show that I find interesting. So let me talk about this first question. Just going to the very top of the conference, obviously Georgia, back-to-back national champions. They lose their 37-year-old quarterback, Stetson Bennett, to the NFL. And they now finally, after 17 years or however long he played there, have to find somebody to come in and lead this team. They also have, it feels like 2 years in a row, lost their entire defense to the NFL, but Kirby just keeps reloading. What's this team going to look like this year? I'm sure it's a good bit different. And is anybody going to be able to contend with them in the conference?
So in the conference, there are probably two teams, Alabama and LSU, that in theory, in a one-game situation, if everything goes their way and all the negatives for Georgia sort of show up, that they could have an actual battle. Like LSU, because they have a more complete offense than Alabama right now. LSU has a start. LSU is one of only two teams that returns its quarterback and its coordinator from last year. Vanderbilt's the other one. LSU's the only one. So but to your point earlier, no one is returning both their play caller and their quarterback. LSU's one of the only two.
Okay.
And so they have the most, they're not the best offense, but they have the most complete offense. And if they got into, and the team that's going to challenge Georgia has to challenge Georgia in a way that cannot be like Kentucky or Michigan. Like I would not put teams that are built in that style, like that are able to beat them. Like this is why Tennessee maybe has a chance at home late in the year. We'll get to whether or not I believe in Joe Milton or Tennessee's offense or whatever. But like
talk about that, yeah.
But LSU is constructed in a way to go down the field, attack with a dynamic quarterback, and play the game in space the way C.J. Stroud did last year in the playoff game. I think the only teams that can truly beat Georgia in a one-game situation, USC, because of the best quarterback and the best play caller in America with some of the best weapons, and just USC in a game could beat anybody in theory. I think Ohio State, if Kyle McCord is the real deal, they have 4 NFL receivers, an elite play caller, a pretty darn good defense as well that can rush the passer. They have the formula, right? Ohio State has the formula, not Michigan. Michigan's a better team. Ohio State has a better formula. I think LSU's close because they've got a really good pass rush and they've got a complete offense that can go down the field and be dynamic and unpredictable. The other one to keep an eye on is Florida State. Florida State.
So I've heard about this. What's the deal down there? Why are they considered a threat this season?
So they are the favorite to win the ACC. So that means they could make the playoff. And if you make the playoff, you could get, well, if you beat Clemson, and you're absolutely right.
Pretty much just Clemson, right? I mean, is anybody else?
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina's not bad. Miami's not bad. It's a lot of like middle of the. I mean, if Duke is like the 5th best team in your conference, you're
all right. Sure.
So, but Florida State, maybe the best down the field passer in America in Jordan Travis.
Okay.
They have NFL weapons. They've got one of the better offensive lines they've had in a long time, and they've got like 3 NFL pass rushers. So you kind of have to disrupt Georgia's offense with your pass rush, and you have to be able to attack down the field and in space. And so if you can do those two things,
sure,
that's like the formula. And I'm picking Georgia, but to your point, they've just like 15 to 18 players off the defense in 2 years. It's hard to just automatically wave a wand and replace all of that. Stetson Bennett won them the game against Ohio State.
Yeah.
Stetson Bennett got them out of trouble when they needed him to. And so is Carson Beck just, he's solid, but he's not great. And maybe that's the way they get beat. Georgia's battling itself this year. But they are on a tier by themselves, not only in the SEC, but also in all of America. Michigan is the second best team in the country, in my opinion. But they do not, styles make fights. They do not match up with Georgia.
Sure. Stoney mentions not sleeping on the Washington Huskies either. Is this a joke or are
that's dude? They're top 10 in our magazine. They have a first round NFL quarterback in Michael Penix. They have 3 NFL receivers. They've got a play caller who's brilliant. They can absolutely do all the stuff I'm talking about. And there's a couple other teams that are like them. The question is, do we have enough defense to even be competitive in the fourth quarter? That's the question about Washington. And we saw Oregon in a very similar situation last year. Quarterback that Bo Nix, I know Auburn fans laugh, but like he was an elite quarterback last year, threw the ball all over the place. And it was what was it? 49-3 against Georgia.
It's a lot too little. It's a lot too little.
Washington would be like
sleeper
on that next tier of teams. That's like, yeah, it's got the formula, sort of.
So let's go back to the SEC. Obviously, Georgia on that tier by themselves in the conference. Next tier, obviously LSU. You've mentioned Alabama there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, 1 to 85. It's just about talent and Saban.
And is it just those two, or does Tennessee get a foot in the door? Or are they tier 3?
No, there's a third tier that could include like 10 teams.
I was about to say like Tennessee, maybe Mississippi State, maybe.
So I think our magazine,
Auburn, maybe.
I could pull out the list here, like the national rankings, because Tennessee's 15th in the nation in our rankings. Texas A&M is next. So if there was no divisions, like there's going to be next year,
right?
Our predictions would be basically Georgia 1, Alabama, LSU tied for second, basically.
Okay,
and the Alabama argument is 1 to 85. They are better than almost everybody in America.
It's just the depth, right? They've just got dudes for days and days and days. So that's my main question is like, take those 3 out. Who for your money is next?
So we have Tennessee next, and then Texas A&M at number 20. We have Ole Miss at 21, and you'll see my point of doing this here pretty quickly.
Okay.
Kentucky 27, Arkansas 29, South Carolina 31, Mississippi State 33, and then you got to go down to Auburn at 39. But at that point, you are already to like the 11th best team.
Yeah, like Braden, somebody's got to suck. These teams all can't be middle of the pack. Clearly, nobody knows. No,
I think that the middle class is the healthiest it's ever been. And
so do you think that truly these guys are all going to be right there in that 6, 7, 8 win,
dude,
right in the same bunch?
Yeah, I would not be surprised if there's like 6, 8, and 4 teams.
Okay,
would not be surprised. Like Tennessee, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Kentucky, Arkansas, South Carolina. Like I would not be.
Maybe I should rephrase it. Which teams in the SEC do you think have no chance of getting to that 6-6 mark? Like who's just truly
zero?
None.
Zero. I mean, Vanderbilt's over under is 3.5. I would hammer the over.
I'm with you. I did last year. Like what, 1.5 or 2.5 wins, and it cashed in week 4. Yeah. So I'm doing that again for sure.
I would not pick Vanderbilt to get to 6 wins. I would pick Missouri to get to 6 wins. I'd pick Florida to get to 6 wins. I think 13 out of 14 teams are bowl eligible.
Wow.
Are going to a bowl game. And the question is how many have a winning record? And I think you could, again, like Tennessee could finish 4th and be 8-4. Florida could finish 12th and be 7-5.
Okay.
And that's that we are talking about one play.
Yeah.
Could separate like 9 teams in this conference. And there's a lot of reasons for that. We can get to that. But like it is, to me, we have a giant question mark around Bama, which makes the top race really interesting.
Right.
And we have a 2-time defending champ trying to do something that no one's ever done, which is three-peat which makes it really interesting. So the top tier is interesting. Then we have 4 through 12 that honestly is one of the most competitive and balanced middle classes I've ever seen, which to me makes for an extremely unpredictable and very entertaining football season. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait.
Braden, you make it sound like, and I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, you make it sound like this may be one of the best years for the conference top to bottom, just in terms of talent. Is that the case, or is it maybe the case that, yeah, the floor is much higher than it has been, but the ceiling maybe not quite as high as some of the great teams in the past where you've had, one or two or three teams that truly are like, final contenders?
I think in a 12-team playoff, which is next year, of course, not this year, I think you have 3 elite teams that make the playoff: LSU, Bama, and Georgia. I think all 3 of them make the playoff.
Sure.
In theory, one of the other teams could jump up. Is that Tennessee? Maybe. Is it Texas A&M? Maybe. I don't think it's Ole Miss or Arkansas because of the schedule. I don't think it's Kentucky, but I really like that team. I'm not ready yet. South Carolina's schedule is way too hard. I don't think it's funny because the quarterback position is such a big part of this, and we've talked about this a lot. Like, you can't put two picks in the top 4, then the second pick in the second round and Will Levis, then Hendon Hooker, who was a Heisman Trophy candidate, and Stetson Bennett, a 2-time defending champion. You can't take all of that out of a conference and expect it to be as good. There are going to be some players who are as good. The difference is we just don't know exactly which of the players that we like a lot are going to break out. And that is a huge part of the conversation around the SEC is which one of these teams can jump up and challenge? Well, which one of them's quarterback hits?
So let's talk about that, because that obviously is the most interesting position, most important position on the field. And that is one of the, if not the biggest reason why the SEC this year is so interesting to me. You have Hendon Hooker leave. Will Levis leaves. Bryce Young leaves. Stetson Bennett leaves. Anthony Richardson leaves. That's 5 quarterbacks on.
They're the best 5
teams that are all. I was about to say that's 5 in the league.
Yeah.
And 5 quarterbacks on all on teams that were in the top half of the conference. So who are the replacements? Everybody in Tennessee, I'm sure, is aware of Joe Milton's presence and existence. But are there any other interesting guys coming? And you've already mentioned the Georgia guy that you got your eye on, and maybe some quarterback competitions that this induces.
I think there are some names, like they're kind of like different categories, honestly. Okay. So like to me, there's like the established guy who's pretty damn good. Not sure which one's a superstar, but they're pretty good. KJ Jefferson at Arkansas has been around a very, very long time. Very, very talented. He's got a new coordinator in Dan Enos that's going to modify his passing game. He's a really big physical Cam Newton type player. Really fun to watch. Devin Leary at NC State, transferring from NC State to Kentucky. I think he's going to fit Liam Cohen's system, who was the guy who was there under Will Levis's good year 2 years ago. Very NFL, coached under McVay and the Rams, and they had a really good offense with Levis. I don't care what Zach says. They were very good on offense relative to Kentucky standards and their level of competition. Tennessee Volunteer fans have somehow wormholed his like 450 yards of total offense and 4 touchdowns in the game against the Vols, in which they whipped his ass. Like, no, like the defense was terrible.
Yeah.
Point is, the Kentucky offense was pretty good 2 years ago. And Liam Cohen's back. Devin Leary at NC State's a really good quality player. Will Rogers at Mississippi State is going to own every single passing record in SEC history. He's already like near the top of most lists already in just 3 years.
The 1 yard line, sure.
Throwing all the time. So again, not a star. Could be great, but not a star, but really established. And then Jaden Daniels at LSU. Those 4 they've been around a long time. They've played a lot of football. 2 of them are transfers. They're just like solid, good quality, high quality quarterbacks. And they're the best right now in the conference. Then you have the guys who have been around a long time who have yet to sort of do it. Joe Milton is as one of the names at the top of the list for Tennessee. 6 years in college, has had so many chances to win the starting job. Technically, he did it 1 time at Tennessee, and then quickly everyone realized how absolutely ridiculous that was. Has he evolved and learned and knows how to play a better game in a very quarterback-friendly system with some good receivers? The tougher schedule for Tennessee, but like I think there's a lot of room to score a lot of points for Joe Milton. The question is, can he do it against the best?
Right.
Spencer Rattler, 5-star kid, Heisman Trophy, like South Carolina. This is a guy who goes to Oklahoma, has a pretty good year. Then he loses his job to Caleb Williams. No shame. Transfers, is largely not very good last year until he plays like 3 games at the end of the year. The offense is simplified, and he figures it out. Well, is he going to do that for the whole year?
When he catches some pretty aggressively bad defenses as well. Kind of
Well,
helps.
Clemson was not aggressive. I mean,
Not Clemson,
yes,
but Tennessee.
Tennessee and
Absolutely.
Vanderbilt is where
Right.
he did a lot of damage against Tennessee and Vanderbilt. And now some of that's the offense being simplified. But Rattler isn't Milton and Rattler are 2 guys that have been around a long time, but are still unknowns in
Right.
terms of what they are. If they are 2 of the best quarterbacks in the conference, then South Carolina and Tennessee could absolutely go up into that next tier.
Right.
And be in
the
that
range of
challenging
outcomes
tier.
with those guys is really wide, is what I'm hearing. Like there's a chance that the top end is holy cow, or there's a chance they continue to show why they've been around for so long and not made that leap.
So another category is just like, I just don't think that this quarterback room is all that great.
Okay.
Someone's going to have to work some magic. That's Missouri and Florida. Graham Mertz is the leader there. Brady Cook's the leader at Missouri. There's some things to like about the offenses, but like, I think pretty low expectations for those 2 offenses. I think I would drop them down a bit. Ole Miss would actually fall into the Milton Sanders category. Spencer Rattler, because Spencer Sanders at Ole Miss is battling with Jackson Dart, both of whom have played a lot of football.
Jackson Dart, what a great name for a quarterback.
Neither one of those 2 guys has been a star, but has played a lot of football. Dart played at USC, big-time recruit, played last year for Ole Miss. Spencer Sanders played 43 games at Oklahoma State. And
it's a lot of football.
Just is kind of still mistake-prone at some time. So, like, Ole Miss, Tennessee, and South Carolina, all 3 teams that are between, like, 22 or 15 and 30 in the rankings, almost exclusively quarterback dependent. Which one of those teams has a star? Which brings us to the last category, which is like the breakout candidates. And these are the guys that if they are good, the teams are going to be elite.
Okay.
No, number 1, Carson Beck at Georgia. If he is elite and great, Georgia will not lose a game. They're going to win the national championship. Like, just full stop. Just end of discussion. We've got the 2 young kids at Alabama, Ty Simpson, Jalen Milroe, and then Tyler Buckner, who was much better at Notre Dame pedigree-wise than people realize. He just lost his job because of an injury. He's down at Atlanta. What can Tommy Rees do? If that quarterback, one of those guys, is really good, Alabama, top challenger, SEC championship game, trying to make the playoff. Connor Wigman, Texas A&M. 5-star recruit, one of the top recruits in the high school coming out. Now he's got Bobby Petrino calling his shots. One of the best defenses in the SEC. If he is elite, got a cup of coffee last year at the end of the season, Texas A&M will be way better than you think. So there's the breakout category of guy as well that we're just not sure about. A.J. Swan at Vanderbilt's pretty solid, but I think they're sort of in a different – they're kind of in a different category. I think I mentioned every team. I think I got to every quarterback.
That was really impressive. Right off the dome, too. Clearly, you know what you're talking about.
It's almost as if I work for a college football magazine.
It's almost like you put together an actual SEC college football for dummies guide. Yeah. Let's talk about coaches a little bit, because you've mentioned, and I've caught wind of the fact that some of these guys may or may not be on the hot seat. Who do you think in this conference is in most need of a successful season, and why?
That's a tough one, because this is unlike any other year. I've said this a number of times. Everyone's happy, and it terrifies me for somebody, but I don't know who to be terrified for.
Okay.
Right? Like,
so it's gonna go from 0 to 100 really quick for somebody.
Yeah, like, I really like Missouri this year, so I think they're gonna be a better team than people think, and I really like their really good defense. I think they've a lot of games they can win on their schedule. But he's had 3 straight years of 500 football, 5-5, 6-6, and 6-6.
Gets old in a hurry.
He's recruiting really well, Eli Drinkwitz, but he's got to do some things. I don't think, Zach Arnett at Mississippi State, year 1. Hugh Freeze at Auburn, year 1. No stress there. No stress there. Yeah. I think,
hot, by the way,
and definitely not a virgin, according to Stoney.
Right. I've only been asked that question 10,000 times in my life.
Oh, are you?
You're related to
ask you? People
yeah.
ask you
all the time. Yes, 1,000%.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Don't DM sexual assault victims during the investigation, Easton. Okay, that's my advice to you.
It's number 1 on my list of things I'm not looking to do. Yeah.
Florida, I think there's a little bit of Florida's the one that could get ugly quickly, but they're recruiting so well. We talked about it last week on the show that maybe Billy Napier's earned himself some patience with the Florida fans, because they knew how big of a problem it was when he got there.
Sure.
That Dan Mullen hadn't really done anything. I don't think. I mean, okay, here's another one that you could watch. That if it turns sour and turns south. I know you're laughing at Stoney's commentary.
I'm sorry.
So Arkansas is one to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Because Sam Pittman's been there. The honeymoon's kind of over. There were some off the field issues this offseason. He lost both of his coordinators. A lot of expectations for KJ Jefferson as a fifth year player.
Mm-hmm.
This is a team that should be very good on offense. Again, had to go hire new coordinators. I just think if things go,
do you think they're going to be better than they were last year? Is this a team that can make a jump?
A jump is, again, in this middle class, is a jump is going from like 7-5 to 8-4, like maybe 9-3. But
so I guess my question is that going to be satisfactory to Arkansas fans and to the program? Like if they're
8-4,
if they're firmly in that middle class, that's going to be fine. They just need to not tank.
Yes, I think if they're 8-4 and we've got them picked like I think like 27th or whatever, 29th, and if they finish in the top 30 and they're 8-4, I think fine. Really tough schedule. A lot of teams are going to have better talent than them. And they've actually, give them credit, they've actually gone out and scheduled pretty hard teams in the non-conference. I think Arkansas they're the one that, like, if the train goes off the tracks and they start losing games early and the new coordinators are clearly not working and the senior quarterback doesn't get better and the off the field stuff starts to come up in press conferences, like all of a sudden you could see Arkansas, careening quickly into if they're 4-8 or 5-7, and all of a sudden Sam Pittman is very squarely on the hot seat. So, but everybody else, like Auburn's in the honeymoon phase, Mississippi State honeymoon phase, Vanderbilt, Clark Lee's teams have clearly gotten better 2 years in a row. Tennessee fans Tennessee fans are still honeymooning with Josh Heupel. That Alabama win is going to get him like 4 years. Mark Stoops has been there 11 years at Kentucky. Like there's nobody no one. Here's another, I guess Lane Kiffin maybe at Ole Miss, just because he flirted with the Auburn job and that sort of like rubbed people the wrong way a little bit in Oxford. They've gone from, what I was told is they've gone from honeymooning with Lane to a business relationship with Lane. And when it turns into a business relationship, if things aren't working, then the relationship ends. So I don't think he's in any danger though. So otherwise LSU, I mean, they're all, it's way too happy in June in the SEC. It's crazy.
Is that just a result of so much turnover that everybody doesn't know? And when you don't know as a sports fan, you're obviously going to opt for the optimism and probably it'll probably work out.
No, I think like Tennessee fans now.
This confuses me. Why are Tennessee fans so? Is it truly just riding the high from last season? Do they think they're going to be as good this year as they were last?
I don't think so. I think most Tennessee fans, even the crazy ones, will tell you like, 9-3.
Because what did Tennessee go last year? 10-2, 9-3.
They were 11-2 after the win over Clemson. I think the problem is that they are conflating a performance in a bowl game against Clemson for Joe Milton with what's going to happen in the regular season. They lost their offensive coordinator. They lost a first-round NFL tackle in Darnell Wright. They lost 2 NFL receivers in Tillman and Hyatt.
Yep.
Like their defense is still not good enough to win championships. It's good enough to keep them in games. And I think they can, the over-under is 9.5. I'll just put it this way. I have money on the under.
Okay.
But I think most fans don't. I don't think fans expect beating Alabama on the road and going 10-2. I don't think fans expect that.
So maybe we wrap up with this question to bring it home.
Yeah, exactly. Strike says 8-4, 9-3. I think if they're there, that's a huge credit to Josh Heupel, and that means Joe Milton probably played a pretty good season, and that means they. Again, I am telling you they're going to lose to A&M because I'm taking my kids to their first game at Neyland Stadium. So they're going to lose to A&M at home.
I heard this other day.
I'm letting you know.
To wrap up, my last question with Tennessee is that like what has to happen for fans to maybe turn on Heupel is too strong a word.
I mean,
what has to happen this year for them to truly be disgruntled again or to truly be dissatisfied?
So Kentucky's a tough game. If you lose 2 in a row to South Carolina, which I don't think is going to happen, I think they destroy South Carolina because they'll remember that from last year. But if you go on the road against the Florida Gators in week 3 and you lose, like that's a place this program has been desperate to win at for 20 years. So if you finish 6-6, and here's the kicker, do not recruit well. This is the thing that changes everyone's mind in the SEC. That's not an NFL problem. If If Florida's 6-6 and they have a top 5 recruiting class, fans don't care. They're excited. If Tennessee's 6-6, maybe even 7-5, and they're like number 19 in recruiting, and they finish behind Shane Beamer in recruiting, and they finish behind Mark Stoops in recruiting, and they finish behind Hugh Freeze in recruiting.
Right.
All of a sudden, they're 7th or 8th in the conference in recruiting, and they finish 7-5. I think that's where fans are like, okay, there's a little pressure on Josh to develop Nico, and they need to be good next year.
Sure.
But there's nothing that they are still like extremely high off that Alabama.
Fat and happy, baby. Fat and happy.
You beat Clemson, you beat Alabama. They are flying high still. There's a long way down for that trip to end.
Fair enough.
I know all my friends are still like they're all reasonable about the expectations, but
right.
But expectations have changed.
Yeah, I've not talked to a single Tennessee fan friend of mine that's like not just kind of riding into this season with let's see what happens. I'm happy, which is strange for Tennessee fans. Usually they're the just chronically upset variety.
Strike is right. 6-6 and a loss to Kentucky would be pretty upsetting. And again, I would package that with a bad recruiting class. But if they suck, he says this, they'll blame Milton before Heupel. I completely agree with you.
Sure.
And I'll be honest, it's not wrong factually. Because if you have a guy who can execute Heupel's system, they are going to beat teams that they have better players than routinely. That's the whole beauty of
proven to work. Like the case study is there. So
it's the whole point of the system is that you're so consistent on offense that you beat everybody you're supposed to. The question is, can you beat anybody you're not supposed to? Right. They did it once against Bama. The question is, can they do it again?
How dare you?
So
how dare you?
They didn't. I mean, it was obvious that it wasn't working against Georgia, but what the hell works against Georgia? Nothing. So
clearly, right?
C.J. Stroud, I guess. I don't know.
Barely, almost.
Certainly not TCU. That's for sure. All right. Any other questions you got about the SEC? I think we got a lot in there on the SEC. That's your primer on expectations. So
yeah, no, I love that. I feel significantly more equipped to go into this season and watch. Hopefully. So you've got me excited even more than I was coming into it with how many of these teams are going to be good, not great. That makes for some exciting football across the board.
Every Saturday there are going to be 3 exceptional football games.
Which is
like you
number
sit
one
down
pet peeve for me is like when you got a weekend and it's like these games suck. None of that, and I'm happy.
No, every weekend there will be at least 3 SEC games. I guarantee you that are within like a 7-point spread.
Love it.
And you're going to be like, I'm not sure. I don't know.
Love.
And I think that's going to be great. So, Easton, Hot Read Podcast, tell everybody where they can follow you and find you.
Hey, Hot Read Podcast, wherever you get your good podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube at Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page. You'll find us there on social media at Hot Read Pod. You will find us on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok, because we are young enough to be on there. So yeah, check us out. Yeah. I mean, I won't lie and say I love putting stuff on there, but I am doing it. So here we go.
Good for you.
So check us out.
I'm gonna launch an app. Good podcasts. That's what
the good podcast app.
We only allow good podcasts.
You're not if you get podcast at some rinky dink bad Stitcher where Napster. I don't know where you're getting podcasts. We're not there. But the good podcast platforms, that's where we're at.
And we do all of our rankings in the summertime, where we just rank all the best podcasts. In podcast form.
It's the most important thing we do
on the podcast app. Yep, there you go. Derrick Henry, one of the greatest running backs of his generation, which makes him one of the greatest running backs of all time, and that is all you need to know.
But where, Braden? Where does he fall?
Where? It's like 13th all time. I don't know. 20,
How dare you?
18th overall. Who knows?
How dare you?
Zach will be back at some point. Who knows? For Easton Freeze, I'm Braden Gall. Thanks for listening. Thanks for hanging out. Sinkers Beverages, the Kingston Group, of course. We do appreciate your support. For Stoney and Tim and Shriek and Strike, sorry, all you guys in the comment section, we appreciate you guys hanging out with us and listening. Tell somebody about the show. Rate, review, and subscribe. We do appreciate you guys. We're here every Monday and Thursday, 1 p.m. So we do appreciate it. Thanks for listening. We will talk to you on Thursday.